The Kingdom Hearts series is often considered to be complex and difficult to understand. That's no surprise considering that many of the titles were released on different consoles, meaning that if you weren't loaded with money, then chances are you didn't have the opportunity to play all the games. There's also the fact that most of the games in the series, despite being important to the overarching plot, weren't numbered, so many people incorrectly consider them to be throwaway side games. But that's a whole other issue, and not what I wanted to talk about today. This time around, I want to talk about Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. For the purposes of this review, I played the final mix version that was bundled onto the PS4. Square Enix's Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep was released in 2010 exclusively on the PlayStation Portable as a prequel to the series. Set roughly 10 years prior to the events of the first Kingdom Hearts, this time around Tetsuya Nomura designed 3 protagonists to captain the proverbial gummy ship that will take us on our adventure. Aqua, Ventus, and Terra, aptly named after 3 of the cardinal elements, live in the Land of Departure, a sacred place protected by Masters of the Keyblade. As is typically the case, Nomura's character design aesthetic includes enough belts, ties, and zippers that I wouldn't blame you if you thought you'd accidentally purchased a bondage film. Unfortunately, you'll need to fulfill your BDSM fetishes elsewhere, as this is a wholesome tale about the struggle between light and darkness, not the type you'd find in a sodomist dungeon. In order to experience the full story, the game offers a unique narrative device having you play the game through 3 times, one from the perspective of each protagonist. Whilst this may seem like it would be a repetitive drag, all 3 plots are varied enough to merit their own playthrough. Whilst our protagonists do visit the same worlds, they have vastly different experiences, and in some cases visit different areas of a world, meeting unique characters that give each protagonist an exclusive narrative journey. Initially, I felt that it was unnecessary to force the player to play the game 3 times in order to see the true ending. However, I enjoyed how varied the characters and their playstyles were. For example, where Terra is a powerhouse, his moveset is less robust compared to Ventus, who gains the ability to glide, or Aqua, who can shield attacks from all angles and double jump. Learning how to play the different characters along the course of their adventure is part of the charm of playing this game. We begin the game as Aqua and Terra are taking the Mark of Mastery exam, a test that determines the mettle of a Keyblade user, assessing their eligibility to be anointed as a Keyblade Master. During the examination, however, Xehanort, a guest who came to observe the test, interferes, causing Terra to rely on the darkness within him to succeed. As we know by now, using darkness is bad, and thus we see a rift form between the 3 protagonists as Aqua qualifies as a Keyblade Master, and Terra fails due to his reliance on his darkness. After hearing about a new threat to the outside worlds, known as the Unversed, Terra leaves, Ventus follows, and Aqua chases after with a command from her Master Eraqus to observe Terra and bring Ventus home. It's clear that Nomura took care in choosing the Disney worlds to be included in Birth by Sleep, as they thematically fit with the prequel setting. Many classic franchises such as Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs appear, setting the stage for the Princesses of Heart narrative in the first Kingdom Hearts game. Even in worlds that are repeated from previous titles, the time period is set earlier, such as in Hercules and Peter Pan. The world that's the most advanced of the bunch is from Lilo and Stitch, and even then, that movie was released in 2002, which isn't saying much considering that's nearly 20 years ago. Yikes! Each of the 3 characters will undertake their own personal journeys, developing as they travel to each of the worlds. It's interesting to note that these adventures somewhat parallel that of Sora, Riku, and to some extent Kairi. Terra's journey centers around his struggle with the darkness within him. Ventus's is about finding his place in the world, whilst looking for friends, where Aqua's is about using her newfound status as a Keyblade Master to protect others. One thing that I didn't like about the game though, was the lack of Final Fantasy characters. The Kingdom Hearts franchise was born of the union of Disney and Final Fantasy. To go from having many cameos of Final Fantasy characters in the first and second game, to only 1 in this game, is a little bit insulting. I understand that maybe Nomura is trying to position the series as its own franchise, without needing to rely so heavily on the Final Fantasy name, but each time characters from Final Fantasy don't appear, I feel my heart break a little more. I mean, Selphie, Tidus and Wakka were childhood friends of Sora, Riku and Kairi, and we don't see them at all. Additionally, we see nothing of Leon, Yuffie, Cid or Aerith in Radiant Garden, which is where they are supposed to have originated from, so far as the Kingdom Hearts universe is concerned. Like previous titles in the series, you can run around, attack, jump, block and dodge. Most of the primary aspects of gameplay function in the same way. You'll even gain most field exploration abilities simply by being given them during certain points in the plot, or by finding them in chests. One thing that is vastly different, however, is that the previous battle menu has been done away with in favour of the command deck. Additionally, there is no MP bar and no reaction commands. In place of the MP bar there is focus, necessary for using shotlock, and the drive gauge, which is required to use D-links. I will discuss these in further detail a little later. It may seem overwhelming that there is a bit more to the battle system, but trust me, it's easy to get the hang of relatively quickly. Besides, you'll be playing the game 3 times, so you'll have plenty of time to get used to it, right? Before I delve into discussing the battle system, I first want to touch on the commands that you can place into a command deck. These can be found in treasure chests, dropped by enemies, or one in several other ways that I'll let you discover yourself. Fundamentally, you need commands in order to get anywhere within the game. Commands come in 3 types. Battle commands are placed into your command deck. These are spells, techniques, or items that you use actively in battle. Action commands are placed into a separate deck and allow you to high jump, glide, block, etc. Finally, there are shotlock commands. You can only equip one of these at a time, and it allows you to use a different elemental style of a crowd control type ability. All commands can be leveled up by gaining experience either in battle or by playing a minigame. Leveling up commands is important, as those that reach maximum level can be melded to make even better commands. In the melding process, if you add a crystal to the mix, the new command will have an ability equipped. Abilities are separate to commands and can greatly help you in battle. For example, you don't want to leave home without Leaf Bracer and Once More. If you've played the other Kingdom Hearts games, you'll know how important these abilities are. At face value, the battle system is much the same as the previous entries, with a few major changes if you delve deeper. For starters, each character uses a command deck to utilise their arsenal of skills. "Oh Mickey," I hear you exclaim, "not more bloody cards!" Well, don't worry, the card system from Chain of Memories hasn't returned. Rather, characters can equip up to 8 spells and techniques that they can use that operate on a cooldown timer instead of using MP. Functionally, this works better than having MP, especially when Kingdom Hearts 2 changed the way that MP fundamentally worked anyway. When characters attack enemies, they will feel their command gauge. If this becomes full without satisfying the requirements of a command style, their next attack becomes a finisher, which is determined by what finish command the character has equipped. If the character does fulfill a command style transformation requirement, however, their attacks become a surge, which unleashes more powerful attacks based on that unique command style. This can power up further to a storm if you continue to fill the command gauge, and in some cases can change into an even more powerful command style. For example, if Aqua changes her command style to Spellweaver by attacking enemies with her skills, then fills up the bar again, if she uses a skill like Time Splicer in the mix, when the gorge completes she will activate her Ghost Drive command style. You want this, as it's very powerful. This all does sound a little complex, and maybe I didn't explain it in the best way, but I'm sure you'll get the hang of it over the course of the game. If you prefer to tackle the enemies from afar, you can use the Shotlock command by holding down the R1 button. This changes the camera to first person view, placing a reticule over the screen. When you line this up with the enemy, a number of targets will be placed upon them. Activating the Shotlock will then cause the character to shoot projectiles at the enemy based on the Shotlock command that the character has equipped. This is best used for crowd control, however I often found it was also useful for taking down the health of some of the bosses, excepting a few toward the end of the game who evade most projectile attacks. Finally, during the adventure, the characters will meet several allies that can assist in battle through use of a Dimension Link, D-Link for short. A D-Link is activated by pressing right on the D-pad and selecting the appropriate ally. Using this command, the character's command deck will change into a deck based on the ally that is being D-Linked with. As you kill Unversed in this form, there is a chance that the enemy may drop a rare star item that will permanently level up the D-Link. All D-Links can be leveled up twice, and the second level up will change the unique finishing command for that ally's D-Link. The finishing commands of D-Links often tend to be flashier than a character's normal finishing command, and has a minigame type of gimmick to it. For example, in the case of Cinderella, there is a coach that appears at the bottom of the screen that rides a path to a castle. Along that path, a cross command travels, and each time it connects with the coach, you need to press the cross button. Doing this will cause your character to shoot a bolt of energy at the enemy. I must note that using the D-Link will also completely refill your health. However, in the heat of battle, when you have many D-Links, it's difficult to scroll quickly to the one you want before you get killed. I didn't tend to use D-Links in boss battles, as the command deck I had carefully curated often did the job much better than a D-Link character's deck would. Terra, Ventus and Aqua will accumulate experience points for themselves and the commands that they have equipped as they defeat enemies. It's important to note that a character cannot increase their HP by leveling up. This can only be achieved through beating certain bosses, finishing certain events, and command melding. I mentioned melding earlier, and it's important to make sure you are continually switching out your commands and melding those that you have gotten to maximum level in order to discover new commands and abilities that will help your characters in combat. Each character also has commands that are unique to them, and if you can find them, they will really help you out. For example, Ventus can get the salvation command that damages the enemy and heals him at the same time, which made his scenario a breeze. If all the battling gives you a headache and you just want to unwind, you can undertake a variety of different minigames as you travel across the various worlds. This time around you won't be visiting the 100 Acre Woods to satisfy all your minigame fetishes however, though that's not to say that the book doesn't appear at all. Minigames take place either at the Mirage Arena or at Disneytown, the township formed at the base of Disney Castle. First, there is the command board, a hodgepodge of Itadaki Street, also known as Fortune Street, with a sprinkle of Monopoly. There is a total of 7 different boards, each unique in who you play against, as well as the functions of the bonus spaces. After rolling a dice and moving the resulting number of spaces, players will use their commands as pieces of real estate on the board. Similarly to Monopoly, if another player then lands on that space, they must pay rent to the owner. However, additionally, the space can then be purchased at a premium, turning ownership over to the new player. At the start of the game you can determine what the goal is for the total amount of funds owned, and the winner becomes the player who can achieve that amount and then pass the home space after passing through 4 coloured spaces. It's a lot more detailed than this, but for the purpose of not making this review too long, I'll leave it at that. Personally, whilst your commands can level up at the end of play, and there is the opportunity to win new commands that may exclusively be on the different boards, there's no reason to play a command board over leveling your commands through battling, especially when the last world of the game dishes out a ton of experience. Another minigame that I wasn't too fond of was Rumble Racing. Originating in Disneytown, it's like Kingdom Hearts' version of Mario Kart, only the card is not very responsive, and even when you manage to overtake the opponent, they somehow know how to drift around a corner so smoothly that they overtake you with a burst of surprise speed. This was one of the most frustrating parts of doing Terra's playthrough, as it's necessary to win a race in order to clear the Disneytown episode for his scenario. The other minigames come in the form of a rhythm-based music game where you need to memorize a clap pattern with Huey, Dewey and Louie and replicate it to build their ice cream towers, and a version of volleyball played against Unversed with obnoxiously large pieces of fruit. If I'm to be entirely honest with you, I didn't really take much enjoyment from any of these minigames, and consider them to be more of a distraction than a way to spend my time in a fun way. I much preferred exploring the world or fighting enemies than playing these minigames. Additionally, scattered throughout the worlds, like in Kingdom Hearts 2, are crowns that you can collect, only this time they are stickers instead of puzzle pieces. Putting the stickers in the right place in the albums can give some good prizes, but I never went out of my way to get these either. Many of the art assets from previous Kingdom Hearts titles have been reused, and maybe that's one reason why the game was made for the PlayStation Portable rather than the PS3, as it was easier to get away with porting the assets and claiming that the PSP couldn't run anything much more detailed. Whilst the graphics do serve their purpose and stay true to Disney, I do question Square Enix's choice to publish on the PSP, even though it meant that there would be a lower production cost. There isn't much else I can say about the presentation that I haven't already said in a previous review. When writing reviews, I usually like to put on the OST of the game I'm writing a review for in the background for some inspiration. This review was no different. When I played the game, I thought I had keenly picked out my favourite track. At that time, it was The Silent Forest from Enchanted Dominion. The lullaby-like plucking of the harp, with the piano and violin and the brush of a harpsichord during the chorus, it just spoke to me, especially in characterising the world it was played in. Though Aurora was bound to eternal slumber, the Dominion waited with bated breath, hoping for her to be woken by a kiss. However, when re-listening to the soundtrack, I realised that there is a song that I like even more. Simply called Aqua, the track speaks to the heart of the journey of Aqua and the hardships and trials that she has faced, and that she will endure in the future. Talking about it too much will go into spoiler territory, so I'll instead leave you with a snippet of the track. The voice acting, on the other hand, can come across as being a bit forced, stilted, or unnatural in places, which is a shame considering the caliber of the two companies that worked on this project.
He said to take 2 grown-ups.
The Disney voices are all fitting, due in part to the fact that the original cast members were mostly retained. However, I was a little irked by the fact that Maleficent, the Wicked Queen, and Lady Tremaine all sounded the same. Terra, Ventus and Aqua sometimes deliver their lines a little awkwardly, and I hope that this is rectified in future titles. I must give kudos to Leonard Nimoy as Xehanort, sounding every bit like an evil old man should. Sadly, he passed away in 2015, and his evil voice will be sorely missed. I am interested to know how Xehanort sounds in Kingdom Hearts 3, however. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep is a game that people needed in order to understand the loose ends created by Nomura's erratic writing in the previous titles. Whilst the game takes you on the journey of 3 different protagonists, and ends with the secret chapter that paves the way for Kingdom Hearts 3, I was left feeling like this was one of the weaker titles in the series. I understand that a lot of people enjoy and praise the game, but I felt that in some areas it fell flat. Despite this, I did enjoy my time with the game, and now that I have spent that time with Terra, Aqua and Ventus, I feel that I am emotionally equipped to have their stories resolved in Kingdom Hearts 3. If you plan on undertaking the Kingdom Hearts journey, be sure not to strike this title from your list, lest your heart be consumed by darkness. By the way, the commands in this game were varied and many. I would like to know your favourite. Personally, I enjoyed Salvation and was disappointed to find out that it was exclusive to Ventus. How can you go wrong with an ability that both damages the enemy and heals you, making you invulnerable whilst it's being cast? Anyway, please let me know what your favourite ability is in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye bye for now.